Mr. Griffith for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me put in two pieces of information, if I might. Our colleague from Puerto Rico got some changes made in the law. We took care of one of the problems, Mr. Walker, and that was restoring, because we saw that when we were down there on our tour, restoring the system without regard to pre-disaster conditions was put in as a part of the third supplemental. Also, the disaster, not long-term, but disaster was raised to 100% of the cost. Now, long-term, we're still looking at 90%, so you would be right on that. But I don't think we took care of the issue you were talking about related to code and how you put the wires up. And, of course, the codes are put there for safety, but I would ask you, are you saying that there's some of that we could eliminate in a disaster situation that would make it easier for you all and still maintain safety?
I'm familiar with the language that came out through the supplement, and I think it's narrowly scoped. And I think as we consider the different types of emergencies that we have in the energy sector, so it's not only the electric component, it's the gas, it's the petroleum pipelines, it's the terminal ports, it's the LNG sites that we've got. As we consider those things going forward, I think that language needs to be expanded, and I'm happy to provide potential edits to this committee for consideration.
And let me say we would love to see those suggestions and so forth, because as you might have been able to tell from the questioning, all of us on both sides of the aisle want to try to help these areas that were so devastated in the islands.
I appreciate that opportunity.
Mr. Alexander, good to see you again. Did you have something else you wanted to add?
Yes, sir. If I may, while not the long-term resilient grid that we know we all need, the grid that we're restoring today is going to be in much better condition than the grid that was there in last August. We are repairing lines and to code. Those crews would not work to any less standard for life, health, safety, and legal reasons. There are new transmission and distribution lines. There are new lattice towers. There are new poles. So again, while not anything has been done underground or to harden or elevate power generation facilities and substations, the work that we have done is not all for naught. It will be a much improved grid to what was there previously.
And I'll open it up. I'm going to have a series of questions on microgrids, and I'll open it up to anybody. I had them drafted for Mr. Walker, but I actually am a big fan of microgrids, maybe more as a part of a mesh, but so that if there is a disaster, you can break that part out and still have functionality. So that being said, I know that a lot were used. That's correct, isn't it? The microgrids concept was used a lot in the restoration, at least getting things going. Isn't that correct, Mr.
That is correct.
Sir, we put 10 in place, 4 still in operation.
And so how are these sites selected, and are these envisioned as permanent solutions? And keep in mind that maybe these aren't, but I think microgrids maybe ought to be a part of the long-term solution, because we're going to get more storms, and we might need to have those parts that can break out and be independent when needed.
I'll take the DOE absolutely believes that microgrids have an opportunity to play a strategic part here, as well as in other parts of the country. I will say that part of what we're trying to work through is the development of a model to know where and how these microgrids will interact with the system. So the concept of just dropping microgrids in and tying them together just does not work.
Right.
There's just some basic physics problems that we've got to figure out how to overcome, and that's what that model enables us to do.
Well, one of the towns that we visited, at one time it had a hydro plant.
That's
and
right.
While it wouldn't supply everything, if that hydro plant had still been there, if we'd have maintained that as a small microgrid, it could have at least maybe supplied the hospitals or an emergent, one of the schools, an emergency evacuation center. That's the kind of thing I'm looking at. And you indicated that it could be used in other parts of the country, and I think we should use Puerto Rico, as long as we're spending the money down there, which I think is the right thing to do. Use that as a test bed for this technology so that we can start building it into other places that might be remote or have issues that are similar, where you might have the hydro available or some other power source available that you could have as a backup in emergency situations. Are you all looking at that?
That's exactly what we're looking at. We are looking at the different opportunities we have to integrate microgrids as well as other distributed energy resources in an approach where we can optimize the utilization of those types of sources and with a keen eye at driving the cost per kilowatt down on an overall basis while simultaneously improving the power quality. The power quality is a major issue on that island, and nearly 50% of the island is manufacturing.
Right, and I appreciate all y'all's hard work on this, and it's good teamwork that we have going forward. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.